Okay, so random digits is our third and final simple random sampling method. So this top part is you can use a table of random digits to choose an SRS. You can use a table of random digits to choose an SRS, a simple random sample. Now, digits mean something specific. Digits are the integers 0 to 9. Digits are the integers 0 to 9. There is a table of random digits at the back of our book. It's called Table D, and I just brought you the first 35 lines from Table D. So I think there's 50, but 50 wouldn't fit on one sheet of paper. One thing, well, some things to note. Right here down the side is your table number, your line number. So notice the first line is 101, 102, 103, so on, so forth. You do not use your line number when you select your sample. So I'm going to try to keep saying that as we do this, but I need to make sure that the first thing that you know is that you don't use your line number. So ignoring the line number, what we have here is just randomly ordered digits. So the digits 0 to 9 randomly ordered over and over and over and over again, thousands of times. By the time you get to the last line, 135, there's thousands of digits on this page. So how do we use this table then? So remember, do not use to select sample. Most people don't, but at least in every class I have at least one student who uses that line number. Don't use the line number. Okay, step number 1 is the same as before, because remember, all simple random samples are label, randomize, select. So we have 9 students here. We're going to label them. So I'm going to have Amanda be 1, Roberto's 2, so on. And I end up getting 9 students, which makes sense because there are 9 of them. Now, you could have started with 0. So alternatively, you could have labeled Amanda 0, Roberto 1, Daniel 2, and then over here, Ian would have been 6, Shelby would have been 7, and Emily would have been 8. I don't prefer this method because it bothers me that I have 9 students, but Emily's number is not 9. Does that make sense? So you can do it this way. I just don't prefer to start at 0. It bothers me. I always just start at 1. Okay, so then the randomize is that we choose a line from Table D. Now, most of the time, honestly, I just look away, point to a line, 112. That's the one I'm using. You could randomly generate a number in your calculator because that's pretty quick. So you could just go 101 is your lower, 150 is your upper, hit enter, and generate one number. Either way, or you could just say, okay, I want to use line 120. But randomizing is probably best. So 1, label students. 2, figure out what line they want you to use. Sorry, not what line they want you to use. Figure out what line you're using. Then 3, select. And then this is where this method just gets a little too involved for me. So I only use this method when they explicitly tell me to use this method. Otherwise, I always use hat method because I think it's the easiest. So here's where it gets complicated. When we select, we have to read consecutive groups of digits of the appropriate length. Well, on this one, it's easy. The appropriate length is 1 digit. Up here, our length is 1 digit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1 digit. We read these digits from left to right, and we stop when our desired sample size has been chosen. Some things to keep in mind, and these are similar to using an online site. We want to ignore numbers that weren't used to label. So the one that we would ignore in this example is 0. If we end up getting a 0, we will ignore it because we did not use 0 to label. We want to ignore duplicates or repeats. If you run out of digits, you just move down to the next line. So if I did start at 120 and I didn't get my desired sample size by the time I got all the way over here, I would drop down to line 121 and continue the process. Then lastly, if you have hundreds of individuals, you need to label your people differently. So to give an example of how you would label a population that has hundreds, if it was from 1 to 10, you would have to say 005. Because you might have a number that is 125. And in that case, you need a 3-digit number. You could have 897. You could have 19, but you need to write it as 019. So this is where, or this is one of the things that is more complicated. You have to be very careful about the length of your digits. So here, length is 3 digits. Usually we only work with 1, 2, or 3 digits. We don't typically get all the way up to 4. Okay, now we're going to talk about how we use this table. But for the first example, it's kind of silly because our digits are only one number. So they want us to use line 101. Now, on all of these examples and your check for understandings, they're telling you what line to use so that your teacher can grade it. So these are from the textbooks. If I just let you choose whatever line you want, I can't verify that you did it right, and neither can you, because everybody's going to have different answers. So you're not usually told what line to use. You select that. In these examples, it's given to you, so we all have the same sample. Okay, so I'm actually going to go up here. They're telling us to use the first line, and I'm going to write on my table. My first student that I am going to choose is 1. My second student is 9, and then I stop. So my sample is student 1 and student 9. I just used the first 2 digits. So that corresponds to Amanda and Emily. Now remember, these are the easiest examples. These ones are kind of silly. Okay, next up, they want us to choose 4 students from line 102. So we're going to drop down one line. My first student is 7, then 3, 6, 7 is a duplicate, 6 is a duplicate, 4. So it's hard to see because these are 1 digits, but I circle the ones that I'm using and I cross out the ones that I'm not using. So I'm going to write down all of the digits that I got here just for my reference. So on line 102, I had 7, 3, 6, 7, 6, 4. And on that line, I crossed out 7 and I crossed out 6 because those were already chosen. So my sample is Ian, Daniel, Bella, and Lynn. So this is our most basic 1-digit situation. Our population has 9 people. In example 1, we chose 2. In example 2, we chose 4. You're hanging in? Okay. When you're ready, go to page 812. Okay, number 1 on our check for understanding says, or asks, will line 103 from table D give a sample of 4 students from the table below? Notice same kids, but this time we have 12, which means that when we label, it needs to be 2 digits. So sometimes it may be easier if you work backward, because once you get to 9, you have to make it 09. So all of these have to be the same length. And for this to work, it has to be a length of 2 digits. So in this case, length is 2 digits. And now it's a little bit more interesting how we use the table, because we're not just looking at 1 digit anymore. So this is one where we really have to remember, ignore numbers that we did not use, ignore duplicates. So we're going down to 103, it's this bottom line. Remember, we do not use these digits. We do not include 103 in our, I should square that, not circle it. We do not use these. For our sample. That just tells us what line we're using. Okay, our first set is 45. We did not use him, so we cross him out. Then 46, cross him out. I'm using 2-digit numbers because I had to write all of these in 2 digits. Next up, you connect the 7 and the 7 to make 77. Didn't use that. 17, too big. 09, yes, so I circle him. 77, nope. 55, no. 80, nope. 00, no. And you could have started at 00, but I don't prefer that. 95, 32, 86, 32, 94, 85, 82, 22, 69, 00, 56, and then I'm out of line. So can I get 4 students from just line 103? No. The only student that I got was student 9, which is Ian. Now, if this question would have been different, I would just keep going. I would drop down to line 104 and keep crossing them out until eventually I had 4 2-digit numbers circled that are one of these. So the answer here is no. Line 103 only gives 1 student, and then that number was 09, student 09. And then, like I said, we would just keep going to get the rest of our students. So you're going to get a problem. The first problem you do on your own says start at line 107, and you will have to drop down to line 108. So I was very careful to say start at line 107 so that you know you can keep going, not just use line 107. Okay, let's do one more example, and then the rest of the period will be for you to do any of the online quizzes you need to do and your 2 check for understandings that are left. So the school newspaper is planning an article on family-friendly places to stay over spring break at a nearby beach town. The editors intend to call 4 randomly chosen hotels. So little n is 4. They're going to call and ask about their amenities for children. They have an alphabetized list of all 28 hotels in town. So that is capital N. That guy is big N. Use table D at line 130 to choose an SRS of 4 hotels. Now, once again, they're telling us what line to use so that I could grade this, or we could check answers and you would know if you guys were right. So number 1, explain how you would choose this SRS using table D. So notice I have used bullet points because that's how I prefer. I think that's the easiest. Step number 1 is that we need to label each hotel with a 2-digit number. How do I know? Because they told me there's 28 hotels. That's 2 digits, which means that I'm going to start with 01 and end with 28. The alternative is to start at 00 and end at 27. So I'm going to go up there and do that now. I move down when I number, so you're probably going to want to do that. Okay, we are told to use table D at line 130. So I'm going to go cross out that line number because we have to make sure you don't use those digits when you select. Next up, I will mark consecutive. So that just means like they're touching. You're not skipping around. You're going from left to right with no skipping. I will circle 2-digit numbers used to label the population. So what I mean by that is just what I did up here. If it's a number in my sample, I personally circle it. I cross out repeats, and I cross out 2-digit numbers that weren't used to label the population or that aren't in the population. So this would be numbers 29 to 99 and 00 if you get 00. I will stop marking numbers when I have 4 unique or distinct, whichever word you prefer, 2-digit numbers. The hotels that match the numbers circled will be my sample. So this is how I would describe my method. So then part B says, well, what hotels will you choose? So I'm going to freeze my screen and give you guys a minute or two. You find the hotels. Like we need about 20. Ten. About 5. 3. Okay, I got 5, 16, 17, 20. So the editors will call Beach Castle, Radisson, Ramada, and Sea Club. I just don't know who's using this in real life. This just seems like the horriblest method to use. This seems like it's from the 80s when our calculator probably couldn't do this for us. Ivani, I don't like it. Don't tell anyone though, okay? Supposed to act like I like all the things. This one, not so much. Not so much, Alyssa, not so much. Okay, so what you have left what you have left then for this lesson 83. So just to recap real quick. 83 is the good sampling methods. So the most basic is an SRS. There are more sampling methods than this, but these are the most basic. SRS, HAT method, technology, and then today, the random digits table. So each of your check for understandings wants you to do one of those on your own. So this first one is use table D. Then the very last page, I would use my calculator for the gravestones. It says you can use your calculator or table D. I would personally use my calculator. And then the last one says use HAT method. So that's what you're finishing today in class. Now, Wednesday is such a disaster because it's Aspire testing. So, and then you have distance learning Friday. So you will need to come and pick up your notes if you don't want to print them from me. I might be able to have them done after school. On Wednesday, I am going to teach the lesson at like 1. I'll email or post it on our Canvas page so that if you guys would rather come and watch the lesson and be here than do it on Canvas, you can do that. Does that make sense? You don't have to, but I'll do it on Wednesday for anybody that wants to come. I'll record that, and that's what I'll put on Canvas. Any questions for now? Okay.